sacred ground on which to do it. Ask yourself one other question, because I want to make this very clear. I am in the uniform today of the United States Navy. I am not here in any official capacity. You must, if you remember nothing else, remember that. I'm here in a private capacity, but I am about to swear the oath that not only the Constitution but also statute requires of me, and I will be swearing the exact words of the oath that the Constitution requires of me and has required of me in the past. I have taken that oath 6 times. Now, slight variations. If you haven't read the statutes, you may not realize that officers' oaths are not the same as enlisted oaths. You may also not realize that an O1's oath is different from an O2 on up to O10's oath. And there's a reason for that. I don't have time to go into it. But all except for the case of the enlisted oath, are required by Article 6 of the Constitution of the United States as a condition of my wearing this uniform and serving you. The statute that requires enlisted men to take the oath is merely a statute, and that statute exists because the Constitution in Article 1, Section 8 gives Congress the sole power to make laws for government and regulation of the land and naval forces, and somewhere along the line, Congress thought, you know what, if I give a man a gun, I better put him in oath too, whether he's an officer or not. Okay, make that clear. I am humbled and pleased to be on a stage where so many great men have stood here today, and I was particularly humbled to hear a man speak to you whose ancestors came over on the Mayflower. I want you to know that I am the first citizen of the United States in my family. I can claim no such heritage. But if you've read your Lincoln, and if you've read the Declaration, you understand, as Lincoln explained, that if you just got off the boat, and I kind of sort of did that because I am the first citizen in my family, you are blood of the blood, flesh of the flesh, and bone of the bones with those men who stood here, if you believe, as they did, the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence. That is our creed. If you understand it and believe it, you are an American, bone of the bone, flesh of the flesh, blood of the blood. And if you know me, I think you'll vouch for me that I am. Oaths mean something. In safety, our safety lies in law. Our liberty lies in law. And that safety is fettered, tied down through oaths. That's how we've done it for thousands of years. When you entrust a man with a public trust, and you know that he's human, and you don't want him to run amok, you bind him down with an oath to do what you hired him to do. We've done that for thousands of years. We did it in this country. I am faithful. I want you to know, I know we heard talk today about someday you may see those in the uniform in violation of their oaths, pointing the gun at you, their masters, in an unlawful way. I pray that never happens. It has happened. I've never seen it happen. I pray I never see it happen. I want to assure you that if it happens in your life, the man in the uniform will not be I. Michael New was faithful. I know Michael New, and I've shaken his hand. He was the only one of an entire battalion who was faithful to his oath. But we'll talk about that later, why that is so providential that we have this in our civic order, that every one of us, legislative, judicial, and executive at the state and the federal level, holds his or her office on the condition of that oath. Because it only takes a few relatively faithful servants to diffuse a lot of mischief in times of crisis. They merely hold to their oaths. That's why I salute Stuart Rhodes and those of you who have created this organization. I had nothing to do with it. I'm grateful to be a part in swearing my oath today. To understand how sacred and how unexampled this is in history, think of every instance you can think in history where republics have fallen through usurpation of power. Particularly think of the times when it has happened through the military force run amok. Think of the Caesars. Think of the Charles Stuarts. Think of the Hitlers. In every other civic order of which I am aware, and I've made this a study my entire life, I know of no other like ours that has the safety valve that ours has. You recall, Brutus and the conspirators felt themselves constrained to violate the law, to save the law from a lawless Caesar. How can you do that? The Roundheads and Cromwell and all their brothers felt themselves constrained in a moment of national peril to violate the law, to save the law from Charles Stuart. What an atrocious choice to make. What an atrocious crisis that unleashes on any country. But in our country and in our country alone, it is never necessary and it is never justified for a public servant to turn his hand against the constituted authorities, even when they're lawless, in his office. He holds that office, and as long as he stands in that office, he stands on that office on the condition of that oath. And the safety valve that he takes is refusing to violate it. No, sir, thank you very much, sir, but I don't have authority. What? You say you give me the authority? Whence have you it, sir? You are bound under the same oath I am. You have it, you don't have it either, I don't have it, and if you persist in your lawlessness, sir, I'm going to have to resign, because I cannot lawfully stand in this uniform, in this office, and do something unlawful. James Otis understood that, so he resigned. A wonderful, wonderful, wonderful safety valve. The crisis of 1798 was the crisis of the undeclared war with France. And the XYZ affair, as you may recall, Frenchmen did not understand how to be Americans, though they tried. One of the reasons they could not do it, as John Adams explained pages upon pages and pages throughout his life, is because Frenchmen and Belgians and Germans and Englishmen did not understand the sacredness of oaths. They were capable of swearing one thing and in their heart scheming to do another. Americans at that time were not capable of that, and John Adams assured us that in any time of crisis, like our own, was our safety, if we were only faithful to our oaths. Now, on this very green, as has been alluded to before, in the crisis of 1798, and on greens and public squares like it, from New Hampshire to Georgia, and I've read some of the documents, militia organizations as part of their regularly scheduled musters, and private citizens in a private capacity, in which we are here today, because we're not here in an official capacity, almost as one by an electric impulse, gathered and renewed their oaths to the Constitution of the United States. And on many of those instances, when they were through, they decided, let us compose amongst ourselves and then vote by resolution to send to the President a resolution speech telling him that we just did this. I have read some of these in the Massachusetts Historical Society with my own eyes and handled the pages. For the first American and his family, let me tell you, that was a great privilege. I'm going to read you just a couple of lines from one of those declaration resolutions that was adopted on this green